So Hebrews 6 talks about having a sure and steadfast anchor for the soul. And that's what happens when we place our faith in Christ. And Hebrews 6 also talks about how we have a better refuge in Christ. And so what the preacher in Hebrews, since Hebrews is much more of a sermon than it is a letter, is drawing on these Old Testament images of cities of refuge where you could flee to if there was some accidental killing, and you could flee to the city of refuge and to save your life, but you couldn't flee to it if you were guilty of intentional killing. And so Hebrews is saying, hey, we have a better refuge in Christ because we who are all guilty, right? Paul tells us all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, can flee to Christ and find forgiveness and grace. And because of that, we have hope. And because God is reliable, and the preacher talks about Abraham, who realized the fruit of God's promises, and so God kept God's promises to Abraham, and therefore God keeps the promises that God makes to us. Because God is reliable, we have this sure and steadfast anchor for our soul. And so the question to us then is, where do we place our anchor? Where do we set our anchor for the anchor of our soul? Do we place it in human efforts and in human treasures, which will ultimately fail? Or do we place it in Christ, who is the better refuge? Even when we're guilty, we can place our anchor, the anchor of our soul, in Christ, and be assured that whatever storm may come, in God's hands, we endure the storm and reap the rewards that Christ has given to us. Thanks be to God.